9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. Liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Roger, Tower.
Welcome to the Alien Probe Podcast. It is Saturday, December 20th, 2025. I'm Doug, this is Allyse, Matt, and joining us today is Joshua Sisler, author of Ancient Aztlan Extraterrestrial Artifacts of, I'm see if I can butcher this name, Abuelos de Jalisco, Mexico. Is that close?
You're close, very close, yeah. Abuelos de Jalisco, Mexico. And yeah, I'm proud to be here. Just finished working on my book right here. That's what you were talking about. So for anyone who's interested in the research that we're doing, you can go over to my website at ANCIENTAZTLAN.com. Also, you can follow our YouTube. I just put out a bunch of new videos on our YouTube, so that's going to be exciting, the content on there. But yeah, same name on YouTube as well. That's ANCIENTAZTLAN, ANCIENTAZTLAN.
I'll put the link in the comments too.
Yeah, we'll put
amazing.
YouTube. Yeah, we'll put a link in our description as well.
Perfect. And just a quick little introduction. We're going to be discussing a little bit about the Abuelos de Jalisco artifacts today, as well as going deeper into the Buga sphere connections and Mt Shasta, because there's a lot of magic involved with Mt Shasta. But
awesome.
One of the things I do want to point out about these artifacts is they have a unique reaction to the ultraviolet light.
Oh, whoa.
That's cool.
So this isn't only just a depiction of the Big Dipper in a rotation around the North Star Polaris, but there's a very special message that's encoded within that. You know, the swastika symbol itself is actually the rotation of the Big Dipper in circulation around the North Star Polaris.
And
so, you know,
too, isn't it? Backwards?
It's backwards, yeah.
it's backwards right now, probably the mirroring imagery.
Right, but it's normally, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Sometimes our cameras on the webcams throw everything in reverse.
Right.
But the stones themselves actually phosphoresce. So if it was dark in here, these would still continuously glow for, 12 hours or 24 hours. So the powerful thing about these artifacts is that they had a deeper understanding of this unique alchemy, how to literally alchemize these sacred stones. And in a sense, they were like a combination of different elements. There's rare earth elements within these that create that phosphorescent glow. So it's a technology that surpasses what we really understand at this time. We're just starting to evolve to the point where we can alchemize stone on this level. But when we're carbon dating the artifacts that are literally crystalline tablets, I mean, you can see a full-on druzy pocket right here where there's crystals forming in it. So we know that this is a crystalline material. And, the Abuelos artifacts, they have these extraterrestrials with UFOs greeting them on all over them.
Right.
So they're very interdimensional artifacts.
What's that
So
weigh?
I just wanted to do it. What's that?
What's it weigh? How heavy
Is it heavy?
Yeah, that piece is probably at least 3 to 5 pounds, so it's crystalline, So similar to like travertine, it's it literally is a natural elemental energy. So we know it's crystalline because there's druzy pockets within it, but the material of even the tablet itself has a phosphorescent reaction to ultraviolet light as well. So we know, I mean, it's a highly, unique material to have this type of reaction. I mean, imagine that when you see a crystal glowing in the dark, right? That's an exciting moment. Especially for any kid, you'd be like, what is happening?
Right.
But that's the magic of these artifacts. They're so unique, and the alchemical composition is so unique that we have to study them deeper to really almost like back engineer their process of creating these
What other
stones.
minerals are in those artifacts?
So when you look at like geopolymers, there's like different ways that these can form. But we believe that these are actually like a silica-based composition. meaning that they took different elements and, in a sense, through alchemy, the same way that we create like cements, they use certain different things like lye would actually, acidically emulsify all of the elements, and then they can like re-harden through a process of alchemy that provides enough heat. A lot of this happens through heat, and it's like a vitrification where everything starts to like melt together into one crystal again. But at that point, it's a merging and a seizing, like a composition of all these different elements that have now like fused into one crystal. And so these artifacts, they hold that type of, it's like a very, when you zoom in and check out like with a nano microscope, like a, extremely expensive nano microscope, and actually zoom into the atomic structure, it's not like a chaotic fusing. It actually fuses together in like a geometric harmony. And so that's when they're like, holy shit, this is powerful and profound, because someone had to have the capabilities of assisting these elements to merge together into one crystalline, coherent, like lattice. So they understood it's basically like a high intelligence form of alchemy where they understood how to grow crystals. And so it's an advanced process.
They also must have, because usually when you do any kind of construction, you do cement, it's heavier. So more liquids you add to it, the heavier it gets. Whereas in that, it's pretty light. So
yeah, well, the piece itself is actually pretty thin, So if it was any thicker, right, we'd start getting into that weight, that weight and the mass of the piece. But let me just show you another, just so people are aware of what's going on over here. I want to show kind of like the extraterrestrial artifacts.
Wow.
So these are the artifacts coming out of Ojuelos de Jalisco, and what we're seeing here is like a half reptilian race and a half like almost human race.
Oh.
And on the third eye, they're showing the double helix.
I almost brought my glasses. Third eye glasses.
And this is just for all of our followers, so people can see what we're talking about, because
awesome.
These artifacts are a unique anomaly coming out of Ojuelos de Jalisco, Mexico.
Right. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And that one was relatively small.
Yeah.
But it's freaky looking.
Right.
Right. It's got a bit of a reptilian energy.
Yeah, I like it. It's a little dark.
Right. To me, I actually, they don't really scare me. And there is, like, notice in her hand, she's holding the next generation, right? See how there's a being down below?
Oh, yeah, she is holding a baby. You're right. I didn't even see that.
So it's like they're really showing us that they just, not just that, there's two different races here, but they're showing us that they've merged the genetics, right? The DNA double helix located on the third eye.
That's someone said that our genetics were
Tampered
with or mixed at some point.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that.
Yeah.
So the next thing we're gonna just jump right into this, because this is a highly profound piece, and I'm not sure if it will even show up in the video clip here. But this is one of the hollow Buga spheres, and this piece, through research, I'm not just trying to like create sensationalism around this. This is something I'm trying to study and analyze what's truly going on here. So the Buga sphere that's being studied right now by Jaime Maussan, right, in Mexico.
Yeah.
It has the exact same, artistic signature, right? If you analyze the art that's depicted on the top of this Buga sphere here, you'll see it has the microchip technology, right, encoded within it.
Yeah.
And that right there is the topic, right? So when everyone started studying the Buga sphere, they wanted to understand, well, what's going on with this microchip technology? And the Buga sphere itself actually has, like infused metal inlays on each one of the ends of the circuit board. So they believe it's obviously a form of technology. And these spheres, you can actually study and analyze them. There's 33 holes all around the edges of this sphere, okay? And I'm sorry, I'm kind of going in and out of...
I was thinking it was a sphere, so...
Yeah,
You're
that could be
phasing in and out.
Yeah.
Another dimension.
experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Buga sphere is a complete anomaly. But what we notice here is that there's a similarity to the artistic expression. I mean, it would be really hard to completely mimic this full piece, and make it match the similarities of how the Boogosphere looks. But this piece is hollow, and the Boogosphere itself that's being studied by Jaime is actually has weight and density to it.
Yeah, it was heavy, right? Isn't it got some weight?
And they actually said it changed weight, right? It doubled in mass and weight. So this is a hollow one, but it still has a lot of the artistic signature. And when you get into the actual sigils that you see encoded on the top of the sphere, it has the exact same sigil codes surrounding the geometry. But the Boogosphere itself has 5 crescent moons. This one has 6 crescents around it. And when you get into cymatics, I have a book. It's I think it was in relation to the emerald tablets, but they brought up cymatic frequencies, and the actual image came up in the book, and it was the exact same image that we see on the Boogosphere. So even deeper correlation would be that, these spheres supposed to represent, anti-gravity, or it can levitate, right? The Boogosphere was documented flying around Bogotá, Colombia. So, and then it, in a sense, hit a high voltage power line and came down, and some local, farmers ended up acquiring this sphere. Now, really unique anomalies around that would be that they went back to the location where that sphere was found, and all of the life force around it, meaning all of Mother Nature, all the grass and everything dried up as if something sucked the life force out of it. Like he said there was a document that's supposed to be like a sphere around that area where all of Mother Nature had kind of like dried up. Not to bring any fear around that topic, but there could be some form of way that this thing is harvesting energy. So that's one of the interesting things about the sphere. But why I'm pointing that out is because if we're looking at, how this sphere is flying around with anti-gravity technology, and then encoded within it was this sigil symbol of cymatics. And we know that cymatics can actually levitate matter through vibration. So cymatics is kind of like similar to a phononic sound packet that holds intelligence, source codes within it. And these phononic vibrational packets can actually, levitate and move matter when worked and used correctly. So I think that they had a deeper understanding of the potential of phononic sound vibrations to create levitation. I mean, that's just one of my thoughts when I look and study the symbols.
Hey, Joshua, the 33 holes on the sphere, are they all exactly the same size?
Yeah, and so I'm glad you asked that question, because of course, first thing you do when you acquire a sacred, relic like this is study it on every level. And so it has 33 precise holes that are exactly 1 inch apart. Okay, so that would be 33 inches in circumference. Okay, and we know about the number 33, right? The 33 degrees of the Freemasonic order, the 33 vertebrae, right, that connect us, right, to the ventricle systems of the brain that allow us to have sacred experiences, right? Our consciousness, when we work with the endocrine system, when we have a fully activated upper endocrine system with cerebral spinal fluid fully functioning, flowing through the 33 vertebrae up through the brainstem and into Brahma's cave, right? That's where the pineal gland is housed. And so with this sacred secretion, with a fully activated 33 vertebrae allowing the cerebral spinal fluid, the living intelligence of our body, to flow through each one of those circuits, and then push that sacred secretion of liquid up through the brainstem into the ventricle systems of the brain, which then, once this sacred secretion of living liquid, the cerebral spinal fluid, actually reaches that sacred chamber, they call it Brahma's cave. It's the location, the third ventricle, where the pineal gland is housed. But sacred fluid can actually push its way up into that chamber, and once that thing fills with that fluid, it creates a very sacred activation where through pressure and through piezoelectric receptivity, right, and all of the microcrystals that are housed inside that chamber of the brain, we have dimethyltryptamine, right, which it is created naturally in our body. They call it endogenous DMT. produced from inside of our body. So there's certain sacred location very close to the pineal gland where DMT is actually secreted to create this sacred activation that we do every moment when we're basically collapsing all of these sacred responses that the pineal gland is receiving. There's a certain moment of singularity, and it's happening like every nanosecond where we're collapsing that moment into this moment of singularity. And so when we have a deeper understanding of all of this, and this all started from just the 33 points on the sphere, but it gets so deep because esoteric information is encoded within this, meaning now we have to dig into the depth of the 33 vertebrae. What role does that play? Why do the Freemasons consider that the final step, the 33 degrees? Because when you have a deeper understanding of the full secretion of this sacred liquid flowing through your body up into the Brahma's cave, then you have access to the 33 degrees. You literally have become the voice of God, and we have more control over shaping our reality once we have a complete understanding of this process. So this is the secret esoteric codes, you know. But so yeah, they're 1 inch away, 33 of them. Okay, so that'll be 33 inches in circumference, and then the sphere itself is 11 inches in diameter. Okay.
Wow. You ever run a Geiger counter on that thing?
You know, I've been so busy with my research involving the Huelos artifacts, and we have access to different people. We're about to go get it tested to see exactly what alloy it is, because that's a big factor as well, whether or not it's just a very common bronze, right, or if it's a more intricate alloy. Like, we can get into the topic of orichalcum. Yeah, like what energy is it giving off, right?
Right.
Have you shined a flashlight in those holes to see if you could see anything inside the sphere?
So this is an exciting topic. I've got all the way in with my camera and zoomed in on the inside of the sphere. And one other person I was talking to said that when they zoomed in on the inside of their holosphere, there was actually a mural that was carved on the inside. Yeah. And I was like, oh, can you please document that for me?
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's when I got inside mine, of course, and I didn't witness anything, but you can see the actual points where the metal has been, you know, fused together. So on the outside, right, you're studying it, and you're trying to find any seam lines, right, any welding points, right, to see, is it, well, this one, there's fine line little, like with a keen eye, because I'm a lapidary artist, right? I've been carving stones for 15 years, and I'm also a metalsmith. So my eye, I recognize the tiniest little details. So you can actually see where this thing was created and seized together, but it's still very sophisticated metalwork. You know what I mean? Like, I still am yet to think, well, could I replicate it? You know, it would take a lot of time and dedication, and it's not something you just do overnight, you know, create a boogosphere. So that's why, you know, I haven't been sitting here like posting like all these videos about it, trying to milk the sensationalism behind this piece, because I'm real and authentic. I wanna really understand something before I put it out, and say, hey, this is the real thing. But yeah,
there's a few of them out there. I just heard a podcast of this guy. I think this guy's in England, and he has one. He won't show it as much. You've showed yours probably more than anybody's shown it. He's shown it, like, there's like 2 pictures of him with it. He won't let him get anybody near it. And he's like, I don't just trust people. So I just heard that maybe 2 days ago.
Right. I did a really beautiful breakdown, and a big part of this is that I want to share this with humanity, right? So I did an extremely powerful YouTube video where I go into details showing the sphere. It's like maybe a 9-minute video on my YouTube where I show close-up details, and I talk about everything, all the research I've been doing on the sphere, so people can really study it and analyze it themselves. I mean, we all are working together, and I know Jaime Maussan said that they believe it's like an ancient form of Proto-Sanskrit, you know, so this, and they're correlating it all the way to almost like sigils of creation, meaning it talks about like the very seeding of humanity on this earth involving water. And but I know we're all working collectively together, you know, so I think that's why it's important, why I'm sharing all this information, so the world can, you know, see it, and we can all study it together collectively. Because I don't want to give all the authority.
Do we know now how many boogospheres are reported that people have altogether across the world?
Oh, there's a few. I wouldn't say there's a ton, but
I'd say I've documented and have documented about 12 10 to 12 different
That's probably
spheres.
about right, yeah.
Reminds me of the crystal skulls, right? There's 13.
Right, exactly.
Well, imagine that. The amount of crystal skulls that have been coming out as well out of Mexico is unbelievable. But still, all of this stuff needs to be studied. If you don't witness it, if you don't have provenance of this piece coming out of the ground and haven't pulled it out of the ground yourself, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to try and sell you on something. So, and we have to study these pieces. We have to study how the inscriptions were engraved into the stone. You have to see whether or not there was a advanced type of tooling marks, or if these were like a typical rotary engraving,
Lasers
which is,
or whatever.
you can witness it. Laser technology is coming onto the scene, which is really powerful too. But that very much, has its own expression, right? The laser actually, through heat, creates an abrasion on the stone. Through rotary tools and diamond bits, it like tears its way into the stone. So there's different ways that and there's also tools where, in a sense, it's almost possible that they had a tool that could like heat the stone up and create like almost like how you carve into ceramics is what we've noticed. Because a lot of these things, when you study them, and even when you run them through like AI and check the density, and you'll see that some of the carvings, when you carve into clay, then the walls would press up.
Right.
And so the clay would be upraised. And so that's why these things are unbelievable. It's like they had a tool that could soften the stone, and then it hardened again, because that's the type of tool marks we're seeing. It's leaving like an upraised mark as if they pressed into the stone, and the stone could move and manipulate. So like that's when this topic just gets really interesting.
I think they did. I think that they were highly more advanced than a lot of people give them credit for. And you see some of the curvatures on a lot of these stones that are out there from past time, and it's like they had something that just melted the rock and kept it perfectly formed. We can't do that now.
Yeah, I'm excited when we get there again, right? We got our plasma pen, and you could just adjust that tip to like a 0.1 micron, and then you could adjust it all the way up to a 10. And imagine that if we had our little pen, and that's what we could do. And it laser with precision. We're just drawing into stone. But I think what's possible, I think we can go there. We're getting to the point where we're starting to understand. Spirit right now has me literally back engineering quantum nuclear alchemy. And it has me having I have a full mathematical equation that I've back engineered of the process of how starlight comes into our atmosphere. And the moment that this highly charged cosmic energy reaches the outer rings of our atmosphere that's basically flooded with nitrogen, there's a nuclear alchemy that happens, because that nitrogen takes on an extra neutron and drops a proton and literally alchemizes into C14. And so the moment that this nitrogen alchemizes into C14, that's the carbon 14 that we take in. It's how you basically carbon date any living life form on this planet, because we've ingested carbon 14. And it'll forever, decay back into nitrogen. And so what they study is the timeline on when carbon 14 will actually decay back into a stable nitrogen element. And so that happens in a half-life of 5,730 years. So that's the process that they're documenting. And that's the nuclear alchemy that we're witnessing in every moment. When sunlight comes into our atmosphere, transforms nitrogen into carbon 14. And that carbon 14, once it basically oxidizes with the oxygen in our atmosphere, then we could take it in, right? Then it becomes CO2. Then the plants go through their symbiotic relationship. They basically vibrate the water molecules and separate out the oxygen and take in the hydrogen. There's a major process here, but why I'm explaining this, because Spirit is having me fully understand nuclear alchemy. So I can basically learn how to capture that energy in a process of providing renewable infinite energy. And so, my God, it's unbelievable, but they got me back in the books, doing this work.
Cool. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Joshua, how'd you come about the Spirit? How'd you find it? Did you dig it up, or
I wish. So, as one of the main researchers around the Ojuelos artifacts, I have a lot of different people that reach out to me and will show me sacred items. And so these spheres, right, there was one collector, and he said that they're being found in the Yucatan. and there was like big hurricanes that came through and removed a lot of earth in different locations, and so a lot of artifacts were coming to the surface. And so it was intriguing enough for me to witness and see these symbols, to want to study them up close, right? And so, yeah, I got access through private collector networks, and this sphere became available. And so I, worked out a deal. And so this piece has been within my possession for maybe 2 months now.
Wow.
So it's,
Wow.
yeah, it's being honored, respected, sits on the top of my altar, and we've learned a lot about it already. I mean, just the 33 holes, right? The 11 inches in diameter, 33 inches in circumference, and a hollow sphere. I mean, I'm still waiting for this thing to start levitating. But
That's what I was going to say. Any effects in your house since having it there? Anything?
No, it hasn't. No negative effects. If anything, it's just amplified my consciousness, because these sigils, what they
That could be
do,
what it's for. Is
Right,
to-
exactly.
create
Like if
that
you put it on the
remembrance.
ground, it doesn't follow you around like when the Betts family found a sphere, right? Remember in the 70s, it followed them around the house.
Right, or
Nothing
rolled
like
on
that.
the table and floats.
Well, even just this morning, I received a image from a close friend of mine, one of the researchers, and she's like, "Do you recognize what symbol this is?" It's this beautiful pyramid artifact where you can open it up. There's a box inside that has like technology encoded on it, and inside that is a sphere. So it's these multiple pieces, and these beautiful sigils are all over it. And she says, "I need your help. Do you recognize these symbols?" And oh my God, right away. I'm like, "Yes, I do." Those are the Roswald symbols, and there was these famous stones that were found near the Roswald crash, and it's these two almost like crescent moon symbols. And so when you look at that symbol, it's very similar to the fractal imagery of the sigil on the Buga sphere, but this was perfect depiction on the side of one of these artifacts from Tula Hidalgo, and it had the Roswald stone symbols on it. And so we know about the Roswald crash, right? They supposedly, right after that happened, a lot of back engineering of new technology came onto the market, meaning microwave technology, right? You got to look inside of every microwave is a magnetron.
Yep.
So extremely high-powered energy device that could be back engineered. The magnetron technology could have come from the back engineering of that crash. Also, what else came on the scene right around then? I think bismuth actually might have become a new topic around that time, but bismuth is element number 83. And why I'm tuned into that element is because I was born in 1983, so it's my element, right, 83. But bismuth itself is a very special element. It actually, when you receive it in like a molten melted form, like a brick of molten melted bismuth, you can actually melt it down and it'll go into a liquid metal pretty easily at a decent, like not extremely high temperature, but you can melt this bismuth. And as it cools in the right temperature and environment, it'll self-assimilate into basically like a pyramid geometry. So the crystal itself is so intelligent that it holds the, almost like quantum codes to self-assimilate into the phi ratio geometry.
And what
so
do we
the
use
crystal
bismuth
itself is
for?
intelligent.
What do we use bismuth for?
We're looking into how to use it for anti-gravity, because I think it might be something along the lines of a material that's like diamagnetic, meaning the electrons, when you get into magnetic energies, right, it's about the electron being in a hyperexcited state. And once those electrons can actually phase lock together, they connect through almost like an invisible frequency. That's why you can feel magnetic frequencies, but you can't necessarily see it, because the electrons are actually linking together in a phase locking type of harmony. And so when you get into a material that's diamagnetic, those electrons are already phase locked. So they will never create a synced up lock with anything else. So that's what diamagnetics is. And if you get a material that's so powerfully diamagnetic, then it will never phase lock with anything on the Earth's atmosphere or the Earth's, the ground. So it'll continuously push away from anything instead of phase locking. So you'll get almost like an anti-gravity experience. So I think bismuth is going to be a key tool for understanding diamagnetics. as a possibility for anti-gravity.
So get this, bismuth is also used in microchips. 11
Boom.
years after 1947, in 1958, the microchip was discovered in Texas. So
47 to 57.
10 years of back researching. So a lot of things came off of 1947.
Give me 1 second. This is important.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of that came out with the day after Roswell.
Yes.
Did you read that?
No, I'm waiting for you to give it to me.
I'm giving it to.
Oh, you have somebody else? I'll get it.
Well,
Passing it
probably
around.
Willie,
They'll probably read it faster than I will. So let me. I'll buy the
Unfortunately, I
book.
can't find it. My partner must have cleaned the room up right here. But so what it is my father. And I really wanted to show this. If she'll come back in the room, I'll be able to find it. But
Yeah,
it's
we got
a microchip that my father had made. I lost my father in 2012. But prior to him passing, he was working on a new energy device in our basement. And
That's right.
he had a microchip that was being created. And so after he passed away, we received a phone call from the lab that they had just finished the microchip for him. And we're like, are you kidding me? It's like sad moment. But we went and picked this microchip up from the company, and it's unbelievable. It's it's one of the very first like quantum microchips. It's the 144 green array microchip, and if you look at it, it actually looks exactly like the circuitry board that's on the Booga sphere.
Right.
So that's what created this interesting energy for me to want to connect deeper with the Booga sphere. Because honoring my father, I always have his photo up on the altar, and next to his photo was that microchip. And so for me, I've had this microchip for 13 years. I lost him in 2012, and I've always seen the microchip up on his photo, but I finally got my AI to be able to scan through this type of tech and be able to go quantum, and so I scanned that microchip and got all the information on it. And it was unbelievable. It basically said that around 2012, when the 144 green array microchip was being created and used, it was the very forefront of quantum technologies, where we were basically mimicking the neural network of the human brain and creating a microchip. We were back engineering how the human brain works. So this is the 144 green array was the very first microchip that simulated consciousness in computer technologies. And so I was like, holy shit, my dad was a highly advanced individual. He actually worked with Steve Wozniak and the startup company that started Apple Computers. So my dad was literally like one of the engineers designing computer chips for the startup company. So this stuff's magical. Then later in the 80s, don't get too deep into this, but he was doing laser technology for DARPA. But all those projects are basically separated out to different, sourced to different people, so you never understand what the full project actually is. But when I was about, 5 years old, I'd walk into the back room and he'd have, high-end lasers shooting across the room through mirrors and basically refracting that laser technology all across the room, and we'd have to be very aware. Don't go in that room because those lasers are right at our eye level.
Oh.
But so these are the kind of things that my lineage is connected to. So my dad was, a master engineer when it came down to the evolution of technology. And so, but me as a spiritual, crystal guardian, I've been working with the natural elements of this planet. And so as my dad was creating and mimicking, the neural pathways of the human brain in a microchip, I was actually in Chichen Itza on, December 21st for the winter solstice, teaching about crystals and ascension and how crystals connect to our pineal gland magnetically. And so I've kind of, in a sense, am more guided to share these natural ways of us linking up to the crystal grid of this planet, when the technology that we're working with is, in a sense, externalizing our consciousness and giving all of our power to an external source, when we are the quantum supercomputers that should have a direct access to Mother Earth as a living library. And then through that resonance, we can access the quantum field, or we could call it the Akashic Records, because the Akashic Records is a multi-dimensional frequency band that documents every thought vibration into it. And so that's why you can't avoid our consciousness. Our soul's harmonic imprint is documented into every moment. And so, yeah, that's the quantum field. And they're just starting to understand the potential of what this is, superimposed information coming from a highly intelligent source that we don't completely understand at this time. So the microchip technology, it activates me so deeply. That microchip means a lot to me, my connection to my father, but also his depth of what he was working on and his understanding of the human brain, right?
What year was he working
Simulated
on this?
into microchip technology.
What year was he working on this?
Yeah, we lost him in February 2012. So, anywhere from 2009 up to 2012 in the basement. And unfortunately, when I cleaned everything out, I was just in such a stressed out state that I couldn't even think about trying to save everything. I was just trying to help my mother go through this process. And I probably ended up threw away some of his important information and research. But it's okay. It's all here and it's all coming back now.
Yeah. Did he work for Apple or did he work for some kind of shadow company?
He worked for like Star Signal. I mean, maybe when I hear back about the companies he worked for, he was working for Star Signal. I'm like, that's such a beautiful name. Star Signal.
Never
but
heard
that,
of
and he started doing compression science for big companies in Europe, where it was all about how do you compress information into the smallest, unit.
That's
of course, and that's what we're doing right now. It's always about the, the advancement of how much information can we put into a microchip.
Smallest, right.
Where did your dad go to school?
He went to UC Berkeley.
Berkeley, okay.
Davis, yeah.
The Bay Area.
Davis, and but yeah, and his brother, my uncle. He created over, I think, 11 patents in this time, and he was working with hydrothermal energies, like creating energy from waters and dams. So
an engineer.
That's what money is, patents.
Right. But I know the next topic was going to be something along the lines of Mt Shasta.
Yes.
And I think I might only have the typical 40-minute Zoom access, so I'll tear into that if you want.
Yep. Bring it.
Bring it.
Okay, perfect. So. My synchronicities with Mt Shasta are really powerful. I think sometime around, it was like 2012, right before Burning Man, I went on my first trip to Mt Shasta, and it all happened through like synchronicities. I remember writing it on my manifestation board, how people say you can call things into our reality by writing them down. So I wrote a few things down, put them behind my Ganesha on my altar. And sure enough, within like 2 days, I have a friend who's basically saying, you got to come to Mt Shasta with me. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, well, look, it's written on my manifestation note to go here. and in that moment, my partner was a little upset. She's like, but I have to go to work. I can't even go. And I was like, well, I feel like I'm supposed to go because this just kind of came into my field. And so she got a little upset. I had to leave, but magic happened. And we went on this journey, and when we drove 6 hours to get to Mt Shasta, and we had destination plugged into our navigator, taking us somewhere else, but I saw this little crystal shop out the corner of my eye when we were driving by, and I was like, instantly had that, when you have like a deja vu moment.
It's like,
and I looked at him, we're actually supposed to stop there. Yeah, we're definitely supposed to stop there. So a crystal shop called like the Sacred Seed or something. I don't really remember, but it was a humble little cute shop. So we go in, and this was the very first shop we'd gone to. We hadn't even been to Shasta yet. We were just getting there, and I see this wizard kind of walking around with this like record keeper beard, like 2 feet long, down to his belly. And I'm like,
Dumbledore.
This guy's a character, full on wizard, but I didn't say anything. We just started doing our thing. And they had a really unique crystal that I'd been looking for because I'd been finding these crystals called mercabite calcite up in Santa Cruz Mountains, where I had dreams and visions of finding these crystals where I grew up. So I went back up there and started finding these crystals, these very sacred mercabite calcite crystals that were named after our Merkaba. And it was an interdimensional crystal, meaning it affected all the way up to the 12th chakra. And the other crystal that harmonized with it was stellar beam calcite. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'm reading and learning all this about these different crystals. And in the crystal shop, sure enough, they had this stellar beam calcite right there. And I'm okay, that's why I'm here. I'm going to get this. And I acquired that crystal, and it gave me enough time to where the wizard starts talking to me. And we start talking, and he's like, well, what's your journey here? I'm like, well, I'm actually getting ready. We're building this magical project at Burning Man where 7 different people are building the 7 crystals to each one of our chakras, and we're building them 6 feet tall each, and every artist is painting each one of the crystals a different chakra color. And he's like, oh, are you kidding me? He's like, wow, that's really powerful. As I'm in it, I really wish I could go to Burning Man. It's expensive. I couldn't go. And I was like, I looked at him. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I actually have an extra ticket for you. And he's like, you gotta be kidding me, because they're expensive. They're like $500. It's a lot of, just hard to get them.
Like everything is lining up and falling into place. That's what's supposed to happen.
Exactly. And so he looks at me and he's like, you gotta be kidding me. He's like, well, even if you gave me the ticket, I wouldn't be able to afford to go. I got gas money. And
Yeah,
I'm like, no. I'm like, the ticket, right? And so he's looking at me and I'm like, well, guess what? And I pull out my wallet and I'm like, I have an extra $60 in my wallet right here for you. And he looks at me and he goes, well, guess what? He's like, I just talked to the spirit of Mount Shasta, and she says that you're supposed to be the gatekeeper of all my crystals. Wow. How would you like to travel 15 minutes down the road to pick them up? And I was like, I'm like shocked. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, no, it's okay. And he's like, nope, I spoke with the spirit of Mount Shasta. She says that you're supposed to be the gatekeeper of my crystals. And I was like, because I'm already a major crystal collector, but to hear this from this wizard, I was like, and I looked at the two people with me, and I'm like, what are we supposed to do? And we all knew it. We're going with this guy. We're going to go get these crystals. So he took off for a little bit, and all these synchronicities happened. Like, I traded a feather with this girl who pulled up that I hadn't seen since high school. And it stalled us long enough for the wizard to finally come back. We didn't know if he was going to come back. We were like, is he just messing with us? But sure enough, he comes back and he takes us in. He's like, okay, well, come on down. I got my cottage down the road. We're going to go activate. And so we go to his little cottage, and it's basically at the base of Mount Shasta. In his backyard, he's got this beautiful garden, and he's got, right at the base of Mount Shasta, you look up from his backyard, and there's this beautiful cloud, just like one of those like circular clouds that's like almost like a spaceship docking over Shasta, you know? And so we're like, unbelievable. So he takes me into his cottage, and he's got, it looked like he was almost like a hoarder. I'm like, what is this? He's got a maze of these boxes through his house. And I'm like, well, what is all this? And he's like, I'm the main forager for Mount Shasta. And I have every single seed accessible in this house, organized in order. And he starts pulling open every box that's stacked to the ceiling is sacred seeds that he'd harvest from every location. So he's the seed bank, this wizard. I'm like, you kidding me? And he says, but come on over here. I have a book I'm supposed to give you. And I'm like, it's getting really interesting now. So he takes me right over and pulls off of his bookshelf this book. And it says, it's the Crystal Connection, your personal and planetary guide to ascension. And I was just like, you got to be kidding me, because I'm getting ready to host my very first Crystal and Ascension workshop in Mexico. All these things are just like, I'm like, you got to be kidding me, basically. And I was going to call my workshop Crystals and Ascension. So I saw the name of my workshop in this book, and I'm like, well, you got to be kidding me. So he wanted to give me this book. I come to find out later through Egyptian mystery school teaching that I went to, Ankufara, the teacher, when I brought up this book, he knew exactly what book I was talking about, and he'd been studying this book. And he said that they actually went and tried to connect with the guy's wife who published the book, and they did. And she said that 3 years leading up to him publishing that book, he received death threats over and over again. And 1 year after he published the book, he drove off a cliff.
Whoa.
Yeah, drove, and she said there's no possible way my husband drove off a cliff. So she believes that he was taken out for publishing this book. The information when you read the book is so highly advanced, and even the intro to the book, they say basically like further assimilation and reading of this book at later times in your life will lead to different information assimilating within you. Like every time you read it, as you evolve, new information comes through.
Joshua, what's the name of the book again?
Yeah, I think it's called the Crystal Connection, your personal and planetary guide through ascension.
Okay.
Really unique book, but it goes hand in hand with another book I'd recommend to people called The Voyager, written by Ashana Dion. But that type of information, the content is just pure Akashic divine channeling. So this book, right? So he gives me this book, and it ended up doing a lot for me. I still have it, and I use it as a quantum oracle. It's unbelievable. The information in the book is highly profound. So after he gives me this book, he basically starts loading up my car with all these crystals, and he says, so I have a storage unit down the road. How would you like to come down the road and pick up some more crystals? And I was like, wow. Are you kidding me? This is wild. Let's go. So we go to his storage unit, and the moment that he rolls open the gate to the storage unit, we all get hit with this like gust of this fragrance. And I'm like, whoa, what is that smell? And he goes, that's the essence of life everlasting. Let me get you a bundle. And in the very back of his storage unit, he has these elegant wrapped bundles of sacred sage and herbs. Awesome. And he gifts me this beautiful sage bundle called the Essence of Life Everlasting. And so at this point, I started realizing who he was. He's like, I started calling him Father Time. I was like, you literally are a wizard, and I believe that you're like Father Time. And he starts laughing, and he says, so you like feathers? And I was like, yeah, I love feathers. And he's like, well, what feathers are you connected to? And I was like, well, I just lost my father, and I created a medicine healing wand for him, and it had a white owl feather on the end. So I've had these connections to the white owl. And he literally goes, 1, 2, 3, and counts 3 boxes down on the shelf, and he pulls out this box, and he hands it to me. And I open it, and there's just a white owl inside this box.
Oh, whoa.
I was like, what? And I'm looking at him, I'm like, how'd you do this? He's like,
it's magic.
He's like, simple, it's magic. I just said 1, 2, 3. And I was like, so who are you? Are you literally like a wizard? And so this is why I was like, you must be Father Time. Like, how are you doing this? And my close friend who didn't really believe in magic was right there witnessing all this. And he looked at me and he goes, well, my favorite bird is a red-tailed hawk. And the wizard just kind of laughed at him. He's like, no, I'm not just going to manifest your dream. Like, you can't just demand this. But he reaches into another box and he pulls out a gray horn owl talon. And I'm looking at this thing like, holy shit. Spiritual energy, how powerful is the owl as a wisdom guide? And I'm looking at and I'm looking at the owl talon, and I'm really like, I want this. I'm trying not to be greedy, though. He just gifted me a full white owl, and so I'm looking at the gray horn owl talon. Mm-hmm. And the crystal, everything. Nice. So I'm trying not to be greedy, but I'm looking at the talon, and I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, dang, I really want that, And
read your mind.
He looks at me and he goes, don't worry, I'm getting a yes on that one as well. And so I was like, you're reading my mind, you're doing weird things, this is unbelievable. So this is my introduction to the wizard. And so I'm like, maybe it was all because I gifted him a Burning Man ticket. I have no idea, but the synchronicities and the way this felt activated this deeper within me. And so I let it go. We load our car up with all this stuff, and we go home with the white owl, the gray horn owl talon, my new book, right? And a car full of crystals and an Essence of Life Everlasting sage bundle. So the car is we're pulsing with energy. Everything's going crazy. So a week goes by, and I finally get to Burning Man. And all I know is that I gave the wizard his ticket to Burning Man, okay? And we built this insane project, like beyond activating. We built 7 crystals that stood 6 feet tall with lights illuminating from the inside. And every one of us as muralists painted our expression of that chakra energy system around the canvas wrapped around this crystal. So each crystal was glowing and pulsing in the colors of the chakras. So when people come up at night and these crystals are literally growing out of the desert, and I put a cap on the top of every crystal, how the point lies like this, I put a capstone of Merkabite calcite on the top of every crystal. So it's basically supercharging this crystal energy on the vortex of every one of our art projects. And anyone who would come up to the art project, I would let them walk through the frequencies of the chakras getting activated by the light being emitted from the crystals. And then I'd ask them, well, what crystal are you most resonating with? And if they'd be like, well, I'm really connected to the heart chakra, I'd let them step up on a ladder and take the crystal off the capstone of the glowing green crystal and let them have that to take home. And so they got to keep the apex of the art project, this sacred crystal that had been charging up. And so that was my journey. I was activating everyone with this intelligence, this crystal, the Merkabite calcite, and I was explaining to everyone the depth of how important this crystal was, going really deep into my verbal activations, okay? Like explaining to people how intricate this was as a crystal that affected all the way up to your 12th chakra. And then I would get into the deep levels of explaining the chakras, basically saying, we have the 7 chakra stargate energy points of the human body, right? Third eye to the crown. But we actually have 12 energy points. And I would explain that, one hand length above our head is the 8th chakra. And as we go up, when you start to reach, the moon and the outer rings of our atmosphere, that would be, the 9th chakra. And when you start to pass all of the planets within our atmosphere, in the outer rings of that is the 10th chakra. And when you start to pass all of the planets in our cosmic galaxy, then that's the 11th chakra. And then when you finally reach, the toroidal torsion field of the crown of the 12th chakra, it basically is the infinite universe in itself. And so I was explaining this very intricate version of the chakras, and on the last night, this being comes up, and I hadn't seen the wizard the whole time. It's been a whole week. So I'm like, unfortunately, maybe he didn't come, right? Maybe the wizard didn't even make it to Burning Man. No big deal. It's now Monday morning, and Sunday night is when the Arcturian came and greeted me. So I'm at my art project on Sunday night, and this being comes up to me, like this angelic woman, and she's standing like 20 feet away from the art project, and she starts looking at me, and I'm like, well, come on over here. I want to explain what's going on here. And so I started giving her the download of all this information. And she literally, as I'm getting into this really intricate metaphysical breakdown of all this information about the crystals and the chakras and how Merkabite calcite affects our consciousness and stuff, she says, stop right there. She says, all the information that you've accessed in the past 5 years is too much for any human to understand with the limited 26 letters that we have in our vocabulary. And I'm like, went chills. I'm like, as if she's been watching the work that I've been doing. And she's like, so you're not supposed to express your information like this. She's like, you're supposed to hold space. And she taught me all these really powerful things. And she goes, and I'm like, how do you know all this? She's like, look at me. Look at me in my eyes. She's like, you know me very well. And in that exact moment, I was just like, this is crazy. But I was like, are you Father Time from Mount Shasta? Like, as a beautiful woman, I just didn't understand it. And she looks at me and she says, I can shapeshift into any shape that I desire.
Whoa.
And I was like, so she basically confirmed that she was this wizard. The amount of information and the way that she was activating me was beyond words. She basically said, she's like, we're going to work on energy blocks from 15 lifetimes ago. She's like, so I'm going to activate sacred points on your body, and I'm going to speak in a language that you may recognize. And she literally starts touching my third eye, my shoulders, certain points, and starts being like, I'm like, boom, my eyes, I just like started crumbling. My eyes, tears, everything came out of my body. She did like a full reset on my energy field. And the way she was using these verbal codes, it flushed energy through my body. And so I felt like I saw a ghost. I didn't know exactly what was happening. I got a photo with her because I was like, who are you? What is this? And so I ran back to my camp. I felt like I got touched by God, like this. She shook me to my core. And the way that they, when you get a psychic reading, a lot of the times that they have your consciousness submit to the information, and this is the way that we can integrate information in so easily, is because they'll tell you something that no one could know. And so the way that she gripped my consciousness was by telling me, all the information that you've accessed in the past 5 years is too much for any human to understand with our limited 26 letters that we have in our vocabulary. So that moment is what allowed my consciousness to submit to the information she was providing, because that proved to me that she had been following the intricate journey of the information I was trying to teach. And so in that moment, it was a powerful awakening. So the next morning, Monday morning, we're taking the art project apart, and all of a sudden, keep in mind, wow, I looked at this Arcturian being, and she says, you know me very well. As I looked at her, I looked past and beyond her, and all of a sudden I saw Father Time's truck parked right there on the playa out there. And so in that moment, I kind of clicked. I'm like, well, are you Father Time? Because I saw his truck. All this stuff started clicking. So the next morning, when we're taking our art project apart, my close friend, the leader of the project, says, he's like, hey, does anyone know who this old guy is who's sleeping behind this truck over here? And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. It's Monday, the end of Burning Man. Now it's been 8 days. And so I run over there and I'm looking down, and it's his truck. It's like I wrote a letter for him the night before because I thought maybe he'd come back. And so he's sleeping by the side of his tire. And I go up and I wake him up. I'm like, Father Time. I'm like, ecstatic to see him. I'm like, and right when he wakes up, he rolls over and looks at me, and I said, hey, did you come and greet me last night in the form of an angelic being? And he looks up and he says, do you think anyone's ever going to believe these stories you try and tell them? I was like, holy shit. I was like, and then he says, don't tell everyone I'm a wizard. Don't tell everyone I'm a wizard. And because I kept telling everyone, I'm like, I met this wizard. You guys, I got to meet this guy. He's a wizard.
Right.
And I hadn't even seen him. So how'd he know I was telling everyone he's a wizard?
Yeah.
So there was all this interconnectedness where I felt like he was reading my mind, this Arcturian that I literally felt was him. And so this is what things that are hard to explain, but that's the magic that my initiations of this Mt Shasta energy, like I got to meet this wizard and he told me he's been taken into Telos, right? There's a sacred interdimensional like city inside of Mt Shasta that they believe is Telos. And so these are kind of the initiations that led up to this. And there's how much time do we have? Do you guys know?
We're running up on an hour, but keep talking as long as you want.
Yeah, because it has a lot to do. There's more to the story.
Yeah.
So
we can always do a next part.
Yeah,
we always can.
Probably need another part.
So just so I don't get off topic, I want to get back to that Burning Man thing because it has a lot to do with our Merkaba. Because in that exact same time, while I'm there sharing this intricate crystal, which is Merkabite calcite. Now, this calcite is activated by the ultraviolet light, okay? And when you hit it with the ultraviolet light, this crystal will illuminate different colors. And so it'll either glow like a vibrant green that tunes to your heart chakra, or a more of like an orangish red that's more to your base root chakra, or an ultraviolet that's higher into your crown chakra. So these crystals have these different energies that are expressed when you activate them with the ultraviolet light. So my journey was to go and share these crystals with everyone at Burning Man, and let them choose what crystal they wanted from this treasure chest. Then I would activate it with the ultraviolet light, and it would show what crystal they had chosen, right? Which energy system, which chakra they were meant to tune to. And so as I'm doing all this energy work with this Merkabite calcite crystal, this guy comes up to our art project and he says, you are one of very few people I've ever seen with a 12-star tetrahedron radiating from your auric field. Have you been doing any work with the Merkaba? And I just literally started laughing. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Because in this moment, my partner didn't really believe about the esoteric information that I was accessing, the Merkaba and all this crazy stuff about crystals. So she was kind of dismissing it. But for this person to randomly come up to me after I'd been doing all this research into the Merkaba and been working with these crystals, for him to come up to me and say that you are one of very few people I've ever seen with a fully activated 12-star tetrahedron radiating from your auric field. Have you been working with the Merkaba? So I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I have a treasure chest full of Merkabite calcite crystals right behind me that I'm gifting to everyone who comes up to our project. And he says, yes, you're supposed to be at my activation. And I was like, what? And he hands me a card. And this felt like the Matrix moment. He hands me a card that has like the human body charted out around the Merkaba. And he says, I'm hosting a Crystal and Ascension workshop at the Seed Dome on Friday. Be there. And I was like, so I received this invite. And I knew I was supposed to be there because no one recognizes your auric field when you're, unless they're tuned in. And so I ended up, the whole week goes by. All these powerful things are happening. Finally, Friday comes, and all these beautiful synchronicities keep coming at me. And so I show up to his Crystal and Ascension workshop, this Merkaba, crystal activation. And right when I show up, he basically says, welcome, Joshua. Head into the dome. And I was like, okay, I head in, and he's like, first thing I would like you to do is introduce yourself to everyone in the circle. And then I would like you to explain to them the metaphysical properties of the Merkabite calcite. And then I would like you to tell them the synchronicities that have guided you up to this moment right here. And I was like, what? I'm like, so I'm supposed to start your workshop? And he says, and I was like, this is crazy. But I was very much in my zone. I think he understood the level of passion I had. And the knowledge I had. And I hadn't really expressed that to him. So it was really unique that he was going to say, start this workshop. So I basically sent my treasure chests around the circle with the ultraviolet light and let everyone choose which crystal they were resonating with. And then I explained to them this very intricate breakdown that I was explaining about how these crystals connect to the 12th chakra. And then, right, he guides us into this very intricate meditation, right, where everyone in the room basically crystallized our Merkaba. You basically call in like a sacred tetrahedron from the source of creation, from like, let's say, you know, the Hunab Ku. The Mayans believe it's the center of the Milky Way galaxy. So you're calling in your very first tetrahedron coming in through your crown chakra in the color of like ultraviolet light. And that tetrahedron merges with the earth tetrahedron that you're pulling up from your root as a green frequency from the heart of the earth. And so as those two tetrahedrons merge together to create the star tetrahedron Merkaba in our heart, you then visualize that Merkaba splitting into 3, right? So now you have 3 of these sacred Merkabas, and then you send each one of the Merkabas on the left and right side spinning at 1/9 the speed of light in the Fibonacci sequence outward. And when you do this visual meditation, right, as you're pulling in these cosmic energies, you're anchoring in this crystal Merkaba in your heart, you're fractalizing it into 3 and then spinning it 1/9 the speed of light in the Fibonacci sequence. Now that activation creates an infinite like toroidal torsion field spinning in both directions, and it infinitely spins your central crystal Merkaba, okay? And so doing this meditation allows for you to activate your crystal Merkaba, which is our ascension vehicle of light, and how we can travel at the speed of thought through multi-dimensions. So I think that was a very big step, right, forward in my process of ascension. And so that was just another quick story I wanted to share about Burning Man and the synchronicities of all of this magic, right? So this is how intricate everything was getting prior to this Arcturian greeting me. But flash forward into the future, now I'm working with one of my Hawaiian elders. This woman is really powerful. She's been taken on private helicopter flights over the Grand Canyon to basically open and close portals by the forestry department. Okay, this is next level magic. Okay, so this is one of my elders, and she's been deeply connected with Mount Shasta, taking her students up there, doing ceremonies, and she's been taken into Telos as well physically. And it happened almost in like a sacred vortex moment where she had one of her favorite crystals and was working with the spirit of the mountain and was taken like a vortex down into the earth. And she was taken into these sacred caves and chambers. And when she got there, she was greeted by beings. They recognized her and saw her. And she was like a little bit like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disrupt you. And they said, no, you're here for a reason. And when they went up to her, they basically reached behind her head and they pulled a stone, a crystal Andara, from the back of her head. And she showed me this Andara crystal. It's one of the most sacred crystals I've ever seen. It's a fusing of 2 different glass crystals into one. And so, you know, there's the myth of this Andara crystal that can be found in Mount Shasta, which is like a volcanic, alchemical, heat-produced crystal. So she shares with me this very sacred crystal that she received from going into Telos. And when she was walking through the corridors of Telos, I was like, I keep trying to peel information from her because I want the details, right? And if you have these visions, then we can get into those details. So I was like, what did you see? What did you feel? And she said as she was walking through, they were like almost like granite column corridors, right? Like a crystal temple was really made out of granite. And when she looked to the left into one of the doorways, she saw like 6 almost like Roman columns. And on the top of every column was a crystal spinning in a certain direction. So this is the details that I got really excited because she's now getting to witness some of this technology inside Shasta. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I left off with the information I could get from her from this activation. But I actually have an image of that Andara crystal that she received from these beings inside of Shasta.
Man.
Yeah, so that's kind of scratching the surface of the magic that I feel from Mount Shasta.
Yeah.
Well, Telos is the legendary city that's within Mount Shasta and part of Lemuria, I guess, is almost like an Atlantis, you know, legend.
Yeah, and when we get into that topic, everyone wants to physically find Atlantis and Lemuria.
Yeah.
Maybe they're a different dimension. Maybe it's interdimensional.
I was going to say it's more spiritual, interdimensional.
Yeah, exactly.
Not physical.
Not physical.
Yeah, because there's a lot of, documentation of Atlantis. And I believe, the closer that we're getting into understanding the potential of, quantum technologies, the closer that we're getting into accessing, multi-dimensional possibilities, really. So, yeah, I'm just excited for what's to come. I mean, is there anything else you guys... I always just talk. I know
that's good. That's what this platform's for.
Yeah.
J.C. Brown in 1904, allegedly, I mean, the story goes that he found a cave and went down into Mt Shasta and discovered an entire city within Shasta. And that's what that's what got me interested. I heard that story. It's what got me interested. But then they tried to put together a bunch of people 30 years later to go back and rediscover. He hid the opening, and then they couldn't, so they got this group together in Stockton, and Brown never showed up. So they never figured out how to get back into this, into Shasta to see talents.
Well, think about like the myth of Aladdin, right? That those caves only open for a pure heart, right?
Exactly.
Aladdin gets in, right? These myths, there's similar stories to that in Ajuelos de Jalisco, where, I'll pull these artifacts up one more time. Give me a sec.
Maybe they only open for those who hold the stones.
So let's see if I can get this image to show up.
I just read a book from David Neff that he talked about Mount Shasta, and there's a lot of Indian legends of giants in Mount Shasta, so that's interesting too. Yeah. Giant skeletons.
Perfect. That's a deeper connection too.
There he is.
And the giants and everything. I feel it's all really connected. This is one of the artifacts from Ajuelos de Jalisco, and if you could see it, it's very much depicting these almond-shaped eyes.
The gray
you can very much see how this is like an elongated extraterrestrial.
Yep.
Now, notice how out of the third eye right here, where the third eye location, the pineal gland is, we see this unique image coming out where it's like an extraterrestrial holding the all-seeing eye. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So that's a deeper, hidden message there, because now they're showing us where the pineal gland is, and they're showing us the potential of guidance and consciousness that could come from us activating and having access to the third eye.
Yep. Which I've heard unlocks you to different dimensional worlds.
This is perfect. This is exactly why we're getting into this interdimensional talk, because when we get into quantum physics and quantum technologies, they back engineered how the pineal gland works to actually access the highest levels of quantum coherence, and it has to do with diamond crystalline resonance. But we are diamonds. We are carbon-based life forms. So we are diamond crystalline resonance. Our pineal gland is diamond crystalline resonating. Right? So it's all connected, because now we know where the quantum bit comes from. The actual discovery of the qubit, the quantum unification of binary information and time, was discovered as the emission of phosphorescent light from a diamond. Okay? So that's how jewelers will actually test to make sure a diamond is real and authentic, because it's really hard to simulate, right, the phosphorescence, because that phosphorescence happens because the lattice of the crystal is so coherent that everything is communicating with a highly charged electrical signal that it expresses that in a form of intelligence now. And so when you activate a diamond, right, and you witness the phosphorescent light coming from the diamond itself, that's when they said, well, wow, what is going on with this light? Because they know that light holds information. And so science wanted to really understand, well, why is this crystal emitting information? And so what happened? They wanted to back engineer, how do you translate the information? How do you translate that light from the diamond? And this is when it gets exciting for all of my quantum physics fam. They studied a diamond, and they shot a 532 nanometer laser through the diamond. And through this excitation of this 532 nanometer green laser, it will excite the electron of the diamond itself. Now, the diamond is basically like a carbon lattice where there's carbon atoms stacked perfectly in geometry. Mother Nature created a quantum supercomputer by basically creating a diamond with one nitrogen atom within the atomic structure. And so when you have one nitrogen atom within that tightly knit, coherent diamond lattice that's normally all carbon, it allows for the electron, when excited, to get stuck inside of a vacancy location. And when that electron gets stuck in that nitrogen vacancy location, it'll actually start to spin with zero resistance, and it opens up like a torsion toroidal field by spinning at hyperspeed state. And through that spin, it literally opens up a quantum portal into the quantum field, and a photonic cord of light is connected, and that light is superimposed, and it's entangled with another particle that's in the quantum field. And so that cord of light is what's allowing us to communicate with this other dimension. And so the diamond is a tool that allows us to connect through photonic light as intelligence, okay? And so when they studied that light, they said, well, how can we actually capture it and translate it? So once it's excited, and that electron is now spinning in hyperspin state, entangled with another particle in the Akashic records or the quantum field, then they were like, well, now we need to, in a sense, document that frequency. So they would create a static magnetic field. And that static magnetic field will basically separate those electrons to opposite polar ends. And in between that is now a magnetic resonant field. And so they'll create a radiation, electromagnetic radiation field in between that. And once they phase lock that magnetic field with electromagnetic radiation, it'll phase lock. And that exact moment when you can sync up and create a sympathetic resonance with that magnetic field, that information shifts. And it's called optically detected magnetic resonance. And so they detect a shift in the optical field. And that is what they study and can break down into algorithmic code and translate. And supercomputers are doing this at an exponential rate. And this is why it's highly profound. I know I said for all my quantum physics peeps who want to get deep, because I know I probably lost a lot of people on that breakdown. But that's the magic behind all this. And sometimes even hearing it, right? We hold the verbal codes. And once you hear information can actually start to travel down the neural pathways of the brain and creates neuroplasticity. So just by hearing these conversations, even though they may be highly advanced, it's stimulating your brain and allowing biosynaptical electrical signals to travel down dormant locations of the brain. And that's what opens up these pathways for us. That's what creates neuroplasticity, the awakening. And that's why just listening to these activating podcasts, we activate people, and they'll feel something from it. And that's what you're experiencing. You're experiencing the awakening coming from verbal codes. Just the moment that we hear something, we have to go and understand more about this. So it awakens our consciousness.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Nice.
All right, Josh, so you ready to wrap it up?
I was going to say, if anyone wants to tune in, probably reversed. But if you could put a link to my book, people can pre-order it on my website right now.
So, okay, I'll put it on
and they can support the work that I'm doing. And I wish I could get into this and show you some of the imagery in this book. It's kind of hard to talk. We'll do it next time.
That's our next podcast.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
All on the book.
Cool.
I'll put your link for your website on the comments on this so that people can access that. Is it going to be on Amazon yet or not yet?
Soon. Once I get it all published and ready, I will get it Amazon ready. But right now, we're just doing the pre-orders to directly support us and the work that we're doing.
Okay, perfect.
Broke down to Amazon, you get micro percentage, but we're trying to do the first burst.
The pre-orders is what we're shooting for now. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Well, thanks for
Awesome.
listening.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks
I hope you guys enjoyed that.
Podcast. Joshua Sisler, Matt, Allyse.
And Doug.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you
Doug.
so much.
And
you bet.
Looks like we're going to do a part 3, and all I can say is, holy crap, that's a lot of information.
Yeah.
Go out and pre-order that book. That helps.
I really appreciate
hold the book
that.
up again, Joshua.
What's the book look like?
Hold your book up.
I don't know if you guys watched it. My latest episode on Gaia TV with Regina Meredith on Open Minds.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know.
I'll send you a link after this, and you could add that to this as well.
I'll add that to the comments.
Good.
Yeah, it's worth it. I mean, it's about a 45-minute deep dive into the artifacts, and Regina's just an amazing, interviewer.
This is on Gaia TV? What's it called?
On Gaia TV, yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh.
Regina Meredith, Open Minds, Gaia TV. Cool. Thanks a lot, you guys. I can't wait to talk soon, okay?
All right. Take care.
Namaste. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.